I looked up
Okay.
the malaria, and malaria does have a symptom of chest, breath, exhaustion.
So
Can cause a fever and has pains around the abdomen.
okay. So some of malaria fits for Alexander's death, but it may not be complete. Yes.
Okay, so I looked up some medical diagnoses also. So I found meningitis.
Okay.
Because meningitis has symptoms that fit him almost exactly.
Okay.
It has aches and pains in the abdomen following, and if it gets serious enough,
Yeah.
it can cause paralysis and a coma,
Which
death is very soon.
okay.
And meningitis takes around 3 to 7 days to develop, in which you have about like medium symptoms. And then after that, it takes about three to 5 days to close, which is about almost exactly the time.
Between 6 and 15 days, and Alexander's at 10. So okay. Somebody else?
I was gonna say he died of typhoid fever.
Typhoid fever, which also fits some, but not necessarily all of the symptoms and depictions. What else? How many of you saw, or if it's poison, what is it? Yeah. Hellebore, right? White flower. Okay. Okay, potentially, yeah.
Doesn't fit exactly, but appendicitis.
Especially if it ruptures. Okay. So a ruptured appendix, perhaps. What else? How does Alexander the Great die? Corey said poison. Which poison, Corey? I don't know. Okay, fair enough.
It's abdominal
Rigidity.
rigidity.
Yep.
Yeah, abdominal rigidity. So it basically starts as either a stomach ulcer or an abscess in the stomach.
Both are bad, by the way.
Yes, and it is also, it would be aggravated by all the wine that you drink. And it basically causes paralysis.
Okay.
Although I was looking and I can't tell if it causes a coma. So
Typically, the paralysis associated with that is localized to the abdomen, which creates enough problems in and of itself. Okay, so it's 323 BC. Alexander has made it in 324 all the way to the Indus River and is on his way back to Macedonia. He's in the city of Babylon and having a party when he mysteriously becomes ill, right? And the first real indication that he is sick is the fever that he develops, which seems to come on pretty spontaneously. So here's the catch. Most of the medical conditions that we can look at and fit don't come on quite as spontaneously as Alexander's symptoms did, right? They might be aggravated by the fact that he's been having a party for a few days and been drinking pretty heavily, but there's not something that's that acute that shows up that quick and then, okay. On the other hand, poison would show up that fast and kill you rather quickly, but the problem with poison is it would kill you too quickly. Typically, most of the poisons we would be looking at, hemlock, hellebore, and some of these other things, are killing you within 72 hours. Alexander's just that tough, he makes it 10 days before that poison kills him, is highly unlikely. You with me so far? So poison would have killed him too fast, even though it fits a lot of his symptoms. Some of the diseases wouldn't have set in that fast. And most of the ones we're talking about, like typhoid or like malaria or some of these others, would have taken longer than the 10-day window to kill him. Right? Does he have some pre-existing medical condition that's exacerbated by his heavy drinking that then launches this 10-day window, right? Okay. We don't know. Here's what we do know. It's the height of Alexander's power. It's the full expansion of his empire. And nothing for Alexander has been better than it is right now partying in the city of Babylon. Daniel 8 tells us that the horn on that goat breaks at the height of its power. I'm not like trying to play the divine trump card and say like God killed him, but I'm saying this is no surprise to what God has already told us. The fact that it's mysterious, I think, is interesting in combination with the Daniel text. With everything we know about the world around us and everything we know about Alexander's world, we can't pin down what killed one of the most prolific human figures in all of history. But Daniel 8 tells us kind of this is how that's going to go. And then it goes that way. The height of his power, just out of nowhere, he gets sick, and 10 days later, he's dead. Daniel 8 speaks to that. Yeah? So here's the question. Not Daniel. Alexander's on his deathbed, and people are now trying to figure out what's going to happen to the kingdom after he dies, because at a point in time, it becomes pretty clear this is it. They ask him, who are you going to leave your kingdom to? Did you come across his answer to that question? He says, and I quote, to the strongest. That's clear. Thanks, Alexander. Most of the people in the room were expecting him to name the son that had been born to him and his wife Roxanne, but he doesn't. Yeah, right, the song. Okay. So he does, and he says to the strongest. And so Ptolemy and some of the other generals that are there decide, here's what we're going to do. We're going to divide this up amongst 4 of us. And the agreement is we're not going to kill each other. So they split the kingdom up into 4 parts among the 4 leading generals of Alexander's army. And they each get a kingdom with a compass direction. The Eastern Kingdom from Babylon to India. That's how it's labeled, and that's the territory it covers. Babylon's the capital of this particular kingdom. Starts there in the west and moves east toward the Indus River. Babylon to India. Yeah, sorry, transition to actual notes now. The Western Kingdom is the kingdom we knew of Macedonia prior to Alexander's invasion. Good so far? So this is like the kingdom Philip started. Philip II started. This is the kingdom Alexander left behind when he invaded the Persian Empire. This is the kingdom that his friend Antipater has been ruling in Alexander's absence. Yes? Good. North. I cannot. From the Ionian coast in the west, on the eastern edge of Macedonia, to Babylon in the east. This is that group. And it doesn't extend below Syria to the south. So if you look on the map, right next to Corey's head, that Ionian coast I labeled earlier, right? That space in Phrygia just next to, Brandon, point for me. Yep, there. Yeah. To Babylon, there, but it doesn't go any further south than Syria, where Damascus is living. Yeah, right there. Make sense? And that space where the Jews live in Judah is supposed to be a natural buffer zone between the kingdom of the north, Syria and that region above it, and the kingdom of the south in Egypt. With me? You good so far? Okay. This is the division. How many horns replaced the one broken one on the goat? How many heads on that leopard in Daniel 7? Oh. Okay. 2 of these kingdoms become important for us. These 2. They become important for us because Judah is stuck in the middle. They also become important for us because of what they are going to do with each other that starts to create some serious problems. Right? They agreed at Alexander's deathbed that they were not going to kill each other. That doesn't last very long. Shortly after Alexander's death and division of the kingdoms, the northern kingdom moves east and retakes the city of Babylon and takes over what was the eastern kingdom. Now we're down to 3. Pretty soon, the Macedonian kingdom in the west is just going to sort of fade and get absorbed eventually by the Roman kingdom moving eastward, right? And so it just kind of, as far as the competition among the 3, that western kingdom just sort of exists on its own and does its own thing, and nobody really cares. After Alexander, that's just kind of what happens to it. With me so far? The north and the south become the focal point. Here's how this works. The northern kingdom is centered in Syria. Capital city is called Antioch. We know that city from text in the New Testament. And has as its first king a man by the name of Seleucus, one of Alexander's generals. The south, I said, was Egypt. And its first king is a man by the name of Ptolemy. Ptolemy's a pretty good dude. We like Ptolemy. Seleucus kind of is like his name sounds. Like you imagine Seleucus being the name of a snake, some of those. Or at least I do. Like that's the way it sounds to me. And that's kind of how Seleucus is. He's a squirmy little dude who likes to take over stuff that's not his. Scary thing though is that he's good at it. So anyway. Now we want to turn our attention to Daniel 11. You with me? Go to Daniel 11. We're going to do some reading. Or I will. Ready? I'm just going to start reading. We've got 3 minutes left before our shuttle riders leave, and I want to make sure we get through enough. So he says, and for me, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood up to confirm and to strengthen him. He's talking about Darius. This is Daniel. He says, now I will show you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and a 4th will be far richer than all of them. And when he has become strong through his riches, he will stir up all against the kingdom of Greece. And then a mighty king will arise, who will rule with great dominion and do as he wills. As soon as he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken and divided to the 4 winds of heaven, but not to his posterity, which is exactly what happens with Alexander the Great. Still with me here? Good. Verse 5, then the king of the south will be strong, but one of his princes will be stronger than he, and he will rule, and his authority will be great. After some years, they, meaning king of the north and king of the south, will make an alliance, and the daughter of the king of the south shall come to the king of the north and make an agreement. So if we follow this line, we run into 2 kings. King of the north is Antiochus IV Epiphanes. It's his nickname. Means the enlightened one. Like an epiphany, right? Okay. Antiochus IV Epiphanes. And Ptolemy V. Now we're told in Daniel that they're going to make an alliance because Ptolemy is going to send his daughter to Antiochus. To arrange this, basically what we're talking about is, an arranged marriage. Ptolemy's daughter is Cleopatra I. Not like Mark Antony and Cleopatra, that's later. That's a different Cleopatra. But this is the first of those Cleopatras. Right? So Cleopatra marries Antiochus IV. Skip down, verse 29, Daniel 11. Here's what it says. At the appointed time he will return and come to the south, but it will not be as the time it was before. What you've skipped over in the Daniel 11 thing here is a series of invasions of the north to the south. Go ahead, guys. The king of the north has invaded the south a handful of times now and been successful. This last time it will not be, because something will come against him. We're told what's going to stand against him is, quote, ships from Kittim will come against him. Is anybody looking at that verse 30? Your translations say Kittim or somewhere else. What does it say, Eugene?
Ships of the western
coastlands. The western coastlands. So what we understand of Kittim, the way that it's used in the Daniel text, is a land space that's on the western side of the Mediterranean. Sometimes it'll get translated as Cyprus or the islands, but what's consistent is that it's on the western side of the Mediterranean. The western side of the Mediterranean could be anything from Greece and Crete that way. But what's really important here is we have names in the scripture for all of these kingdoms that would have existed here. The only kingdom on the western half of the Mediterranean we don't have a name for in the Old Testament is that one. So this idea of ships from Kittim seems to be a reference to Rome, which, by the way, they would have sailed along the western coastlands, and then to Crete, and then to Cyprus, and then from Cyprus, which is why some of your translations will say western coastlands, or why some of your translations will say from the island of Cyprus. It seems this Kittim is Rome. Well, here's what's going to happen. I'll paraphrase it for you. Antiochus IV is going to visit the southern kingdom and try and take it again. He's going to get stopped by these Romans, and then because he's angry, on his way home, passing through the city of Jerusalem, he's going to make a stop. And he's going to take his anger out on the city of Jerusalem by messing with the Jews. We're told in Daniel 11, he's going to set up an abomination in the temple. He's going to profane the temple and make it unholy. He's going to stop the daily offering and sacrifice. He'll persecute those who abide by the covenant and reward those who abandon the covenant. And that is where we'll pick up tomorrow.